Hey, what's up, guys? This is Pastor Aaron bringing you guys another podcast mini today. I am super excited about what I am going to share with you guys. Just want to do a quick reminder today. Make sure you guys check out not only our podcast minis that are dropping multiple times a week, but also make sure you guys are checking out our main podcast that drops on Thursdays. I know if you're a longtime listener or you've been listening even for the past 6 months or so, you've realized that there was a little bit of a dip for a few weeks there where the podcasts weren't being posted as much. We apologize for that, but we were out of the country on missions, out of town at youth camp, vacations. Um, it just wasn't syncing up for us all to be able to do podcasts regularly, but they are back happening on a regular basis. And be sure you guys are checking those out wherever you get your podcasts. Also, make sure if you're watching those podcasts, which I hope you are, that you are leaving us some comments on YouTube. Like always, we will read those comments on some of our on those regular podcasts, the Thursday podcasts. Um, and that's also where you can drop in questions. We're getting ready to do a mailbag podcast here soon if you're listening to this in real time. And so make sure you submit your questions to Aaron at ignited.org or Lucas at ignited.org. Either one will work. Can I be honest with you guys about something? That's the topic of my discussion today is can I be honest with you? And I was doing some study for a message that I'm going to be preaching at Cornerstone here in a little bit. And I'm going to preach out of 2 Kings chapter 8. There's a really interesting story in 2 Kings chapter 8. But to really understand it, I had to do a lot of study and read 2 Kings chapter 4 because 2 Kings 8 doesn't make any sense without 2 Kings 4. And there's this crazy story where Elisha, the prophet of Israel, the mentee of Elijah. Elijah has gone up into heaven. Elisha is the new prophet of Israel. And at this point, by 2 Kings 4, he's been the prophet for a little bit. God has used him to do incredible things. And one day he's just traveling to this town called Shunem, I guess. I don't know how to say it, if I'm being honest. And there's a well-to-do woman there who has a house, and she invites Elijah over for a meal, which we all love when one of those kind of like I picture this lady as kind of like the church mom lady. Like maybe her kids are grown, maybe they're not, but like this is the church mom lady. Like she is like that kind of well-to-do lady. She's a fantastic cook, and she is inviting you over to dinner, and you're like, yes, every time. Right? Like I can think of a few of those ladies at our church. Like if they invite me over to dinner, it's a yes. And like so I think like that's kind of the woman that she is. She invites Elijah over to dinner. He ends up going to her house all the time, every time he shows up to Shunem. So apparently she was like a phenomenal cook, and so he's connecting with her, and then she says, hey, I'm going to actually build you a room in our house so that whenever you come through this town, you can just stay here with us instead of having to stay at the local Super 8 or whatever. And so he's like, awesome, this is great. And he stays with her, and her and her husband, and he's just got this little room upstairs. And after doing it multiple times, he brings his servant in, and he's like, hey, like this lady does so much for us. What can we do for her? They have this little exchange. The woman's like, I don't need anything. And then his Elisha's servants, like, she doesn't have a son. Elisha prophesies that she'll have a son. And she's like, no, my Lord, don't get my hopes up. And then she has a son. And then the story kind of takes a weird turn from there because it's like the son grows up. He's an older boy at this point. He's out in the field working with his dad. We don't know exactly how old he is. He's probably maybe around 12 years old. He has this headache. His dad is like, just go see your mom. Goes to see mom. The boy literally dies in mom's arms. She saddles up a donkey and is like, hey, take me to the man of God. Take me to Elisha. And her servants are like, why? And she's like, just take me to Elisha. and she gets to Elisha, and this is the crazy interaction that I just want to talk about just for a second. So she's heading to Elisha, and it says, so she set out and came to the man of God at Mount Carmel. And when he saw her at the distance, the man of God said to his servant Gehazi, look, there's the Shunammite. Run to meet her and ask her, are you all right? Is your husband all right? Is your child all right? Everything is all right, she said. And when she reached the man of God at the mountain, she took a hold of his feet. And Gehazi came over to push her away, but the man of God said, now check this out. This is it. This is where I want to just chat about this for a second. The man of God said, leave her alone. She's in bitter distress, but the Lord has hidden it from me, and has not told me why. And then she said, did I ask you for a son, my Lord? She said, didn't I tell you, don't raise my hopes? And so she expresses to Elisha what has happened. The story goes on. I'm not going to read the entire thing, but just read that story. Elisha sends Gehazi, his servant, ahead of him. Eventually, Elisha raises the dead boy back to life. And this incredible miracle happens. But it happened because the Shunammite was honest with Elisha. She was vulnerable with him for a moment. She was able to express her grief and her sorrow and even her anger to the man of God in this moment. She was honest with him, and she was able to see her son delivered. But I want to point out something to you, that we as Christians need to learn how to be authentic and vulnerable with each other. But sometimes not with everybody. I think that sometimes in our culture, especially with a younger generation, like kind of my generation and a little bit younger, we crave authenticity, but we haven't always been taught who to be authentic with. So it can be dangerous when you're trying to be authentic with the wrong people. Right? The man of God's servant Gehazi comes up to her, and he's like, hey, is everything all right? He's asking what seems like all of the right questions. And she says, yeah, everything's okay, even when it's not. But then when she gets to the man of God, she pours out her heart. And she's saying, listen, I know that you're a man of God, but this is happening in my life, and this is not how I wanted it to go. And I think maybe the reason that she didn't say anything to Gehazi is that we see a few times that Gehazi is not the best servant for Elisha. That he's had some moments in his life where greed and things have ruled his life. And so maybe she's realized that just because this person is in the church doesn't mean they're the best person for me to be vulnerable with. Doesn't mean they're the best person for me to be honest with. Just because this person's in the church doesn't mean they're the best person for me to go to and say, hey, can I be vulnerable with you about something? But she did know the right person. That doesn't mean that every person is wrong. As a matter of fact, she goes past Gehazi and she comes to Elisha. And then he says, hey, I don't know what is wrong, but I can tell you're in bitter grief. So, yes, we have to be careful about who we're being vulnerable with, but we do have to be vulnerable. If she was never vulnerable with Elisha, her son would have never been raised back to life. If she was never vulnerable with Elisha, her son would have never been raised back to life. There is a moment, probably lots of moments, where we need to become vulnerable with people. Where we need to express to people what is going on so that our mentors, our pastors, our close friends that we let into our life can be there for us. And so, can I be vulnerable with you guys? This is not something that we do a great job at all the time, but it's something that I want to get better at. I want to get better at becoming an Elisha, where people feel like they can come to me and say, can I be vulnerable with you? I want to be better at coming to the people that are the men and women of God in my life that I look up to, and coming to them and saying, hey, can I be vulnerable with you? And I think that if we can do that, we're going to see the community of God rise up and become even stronger. So, can I be vulnerable with you guys? And I hope the answer is yes, absolutely. Man, that's all the time that I have for today. It was a great podcast, man. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I really enjoyed this conversation. I hope you guys did as well. Once again, a reminder: make sure you check out our Thursday podcast on YouTube and wherever else you get your podcast from. Check it out there, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.